Hey, this is Mark Comfort and my wife, Mimi Comfort, are owners of Cruise Holidays of Kansas City. And hey, 1 month, say 5 weeks from today, will be our 32nd anniversary in business. And we're looking forward to that. We're also looking forward to 2021. And the purpose of this webinar, I have Mr. Abe Hughes and Mr. Brendan Holcomb on with me. Abe and Brendan are going to be talking about the Alaska experience, and especially with emphasis from Brendan's point of view on the Alaska Cruise Tour part of Alaska. And we all believe everything we're hearing about 2021 is Alaska will be one of the most, if not the most popular destination in all of the world, Alaska and the Caribbean. And the reason for that is very, very simple. The entire season got wiped out or got canceled or postponed this past season. It would be ending about now. And it will be something that a lot of people will be interested in doing next year, that kind of destination. First of all, there is a lot of what are called future cruise credits that are out there. I mean, hundreds of thousands is my guess. Abe and Brendan can address that. The other reason why is, hey, listen, it's close in. It's close to the United States. It's part of the United States, obviously. And there's just something that everybody will do once in their life, we hope. And the people who have done Alaska, like me, I've done Alaska 16 times. It's truly year in and year out one of the highest satisfaction ratings of any destination in the world for vacations. Let me say that again. Alaska, for the 31 full years we've been in business, has been either number 1 or number 2 in a destination for satisfaction from the consumer's point of view. And to me, and Mimi and my whole staff at Cruise Holidays of Kansas City, honestly, about the only complaints we ever get are not really complaints with Alaska. It's that I only took the cruise. I wish I would have taken the cruise and the land tour, or the cruise tour in addition to the cruise. And so let me, and all of our staff, we're knowledgeable. We have firsthand experience. We can help you with all the options, because there are a lot of options when it comes to Alaska. But Alaska is going to be very, very popular next year. That's why we want to have this webinar right now. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to the experts, Mr. Abe Hughes of Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. And Abe, then you can introduce Brendan Holcomb, the guy that is the expert in Alaska. And I learned a lot from Brendan just on our first talk on this. And I was a little cocky. I didn't think I could learn much more about Alaska, but I did. So this is going to be a fantastic webinar, and we'll be back with you. I'll be back with you as soon as these two gentlemen are done.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mark. We really appreciate you and your entire Cruise Holidays team. Without you, we definitely wouldn't be where we are today. And congratulations on yet another anniversary in the travel business. Although this particular anniversary is going to be, I think, one that you'll be exceptionally proud of, just in the overcoming of 2020 and just moving forward. Because at Royal Caribbean, we've always believed that great vacation experiences start with great travel partners, and the expertise that you all guide your clients with all of your travel counselors is truly remarkable. And for anybody watching this right now, your travel counselors really do put together a program that makes your vacation experience worry-free, hassle-free, filled with memorable moments, and perfectly planned, executed. And that's really where it's at, is creating these memories and vacations that are filled with moments that you'll never forget. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about Alaska. I've got a little bit to talk about my the ships that we're going to be sailing on. As my experience, I've been with the Royal Caribbean for over 17 years, and the majority of that time out on board our ships as a cruise director. And spending that much time out there, and working out on ships, Alaska's always been a destination that I have always been so anxious to return to. And I truly believe that when you take the time to sail Alaska, you will have that new perspective in the world that we live in. It's truly a gorgeous place all the way through. And tonight we're going to have the opportunity to talk about the opportunities of sailing the coastline of Alaska, along the southeast coastline, plus also exploring the interior of Alaska through an Alaska cruise tour. So we've got a lot of visuals along the way as well, and some really engaging photos. This is going to help you put you there where we're going to be visiting. And along the way, it's going to be also some educational side of it. because Brendan is truly an expert. I'm the shipboard guy. He is the land guy. And together, I think you're going to be experiencing Alaska in giving you that desire to go, whether it's your first time or you've been there multiple times. But let's just give a little bit of a lesson in geography, I guess, because we all know intellectually that Alaska itself is the largest state. But to cover Alaska in the lower 48, and if you split Alaska into two, it would actually still be the first and second largest state, with Texas coming in at number 3. So when we travel Alaska, we need to consider how we are going to see what we want to see and how we are going to experience what we want to experience with the destination, Alaska, as the actual destination. And so one of the biggest recommendations that we have are start bucketing out what you would like to get out of your Alaska experience. Typically speaking, there are 4 of what they call the must-sees. There is the wilderness, there's the wildlife, there's the mountains, and then there's the glaciers. And Brendan's going to take a deeper dive into these 4 must-sees. But first, let's talk about how we're going to get there. The Royal Caribbean, of course, the ships. Royal Caribbean has 4 ships sailing in Alaska for 2021. The first 2 are the Ovation of the Seas as well as the Quantum of the Seas. These 2 ships are some of the most beautiful, most innovative, most environmentally friendly cruise ships in the entire world, and they really bring the adventure out into everyone. And really, the way that I like to describe these ships, it's basically show-stopping entertainment meets cutting-edge technology that blend all together the art and the music of cruising. It's really an incredible space, and the design of the ships themselves are really built for all-weather destinations. So it's perfect for the somewhat unpredictable weather that Alaska can bring. Starting at the top, there are not only 2 outdoor swimming pools, because there are some nice, warm, sunny days in Alaska, but there's also 2 indoor swimming pools. One is for the families with a retractable roof, as well as a fully enclosed adults-only solarium that you can see here on the screen. The Seaplex is the largest indoor sports facility at sea. It's got tons of activities from bumper cars to roller skating, a full-size basketball court. They have expansive views to the nature that surrounds you just outside of the ship. The North Star is an observation bubble, essentially. It will take you more than 300 feet above the ocean, giving you just beautiful views in this jewel-shaped crystal capsule. The best views of Alaska are always from the air, and this takes you as high as you could possibly get on any ship in the world. Ripcord by iFly, this is a vertical wind tunnel and a skydiving simulator, and you can feel the freedom of free fall right there on the deck without actually leaving the deck. And there's an instructor in there the entire time, so you're not going to fly away to somewhere in Canada. Don't worry about that. And of course, there is the iconic FlowRider surf simulator and boogie boarding simulator that you can even hide. It's a feature on board and exclusive to Royal Caribbean ships. And I know some of you might be thinking, I don't know, surfing at sea, indoor skydiving, that's not really my cup of tea. I tell you what, folks, watching these activities are just as fun as doing the activities, and it is amazing who does these activities. There is definitely for the young and the young at heart. Now, venturing to the interior of the ship, of course, you get the architectural beauty of Royal Caribbean ships. The Royal Esplanade is the true heartbeat of the ship, that's lined with eateries and bars and pubs and shopping and the works. The Royal Theater is really a staple of Royal Caribbean's award-winning entertainment. During the day, you're going to hear guest lecturers and naturalists talk about what you're witnessing in Alaska. In the evening, you'll be entertained by some of the top headlining stars in the world today, magicians, music groups, comedians, jugglers, and original Royal Caribbean productions along the way. At the far back of the ship, you will find 270, which is, we warmly call 270 your living room by day and your entertainment space by night, with incredible 270-degree views to the back of the ship. Imagine having your morning coffee or your afternoon lunch while you're sailing the inside passage with incredible views to the outside. And in the evening, it transforms into really the most immersive blend of entertainment with multimedia and art and singers, dancers, the Vistoramas, robotic screens. I could go on, but this venue is really something else. And that's not just 2 entertainment venues on board the ship, but there's also a third, which is called Music Hall. And Music Hall is an area where tribute bands and DJs and other offerings take place throughout the day and the evening as we journey on board. Now that's 2 of the 4 ships. Shifting gears to our other 2 ships, the Serenade of the Seas as well as the Radiance of the Seas. These are 2 of our smaller ships sailing Alaska, and the Radiance class, they are always and have been built and designed for scenic cruising. The ships themselves are affectionately known as the ships of light, as there is so much light as you just pouring into the ship. As you walk through, there's floor-to-ceiling windows pretty much everywhere you go. There is a 9-story glass atrium with outward-facing elevators that view the ocean. So even when you're in the elevators, you have a beautiful, beautiful view of the world outside. No matter where you're at, you're going to be feeling that connection with Alaska. And of course, there's the adults-only Solarium swimming pool with the crystal canopy. You can enjoy the hot tubs in the swimming pools while staring out at Tongass National Park. It's amazing. These mid-sized ships themselves are really giving you that incredible Royal Caribbean experience in a more intimate and warm setting along the way. Now, on board every Royal Caribbean ship, no matter where we're at in the globe, all Royal Caribbean ships, you will find the award-winning Adventure Ocean Youth Program with both educational and engaging activities for all ages, starting at 6 months to 36 months, all the way through to our Adventure Ocean 3 to 11 years old, and then, of course, our teenagers as well. And I guess really when it comes to the kids, if you are sailing with any, and the multi-generational families that are sailing, I tell you, we know that when the kids are happy, everybody in the family is happy. Now, Royal Caribbean is all about options when it comes to your dining experience. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, the snacks between the snacks, they're all available in multiple complimentary venues throughout the ship. But there's also a wide array of specialty dining for those special events, whether it is the Chopped Steakhouse grills, as well as Azumi Sushi and Teppanyaki and Wonderland and Jamie's Italian from award-winning chef Jamie Oliver. There's really something out there for everybody. We're all about the options there. And the accommodations, of course, spacious, comfortable, top-notch service from solo travelers to multi-bedroom suites available for our families. Twice daily housekeeping. Stateroom attendants just do an amazing job of making your time feel your time away feel like home. It's really beautiful. And of course, for that next level accommodations, those want to take that ultra luxury to a whole new level, make sure you talk to the Cruise Holidays travel counselors, and they'll tell you about the Royal Suite class experience for that next generation offerings that are available through that. But with all of the wows of our ships and the incredible accommodations and the entertainment and everyone, the one part that everyone always remembers about their time on board a Royal Caribbean ship are, of course, the crew members, those that are giving you that unsurpassed service that you all deserve on a cruise vacation. That's what everybody goes home with, are the incredible crew members that make that overall cruise vacation experience an amazing one. And you certainly you certainly deserve it indeed. Now, Royal Caribbean's leading ships and award-winning entertainment, this is how we will be cruising, but right now we need to shift gears and talk about where we will be cruising. And that's where I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Brendan, who is going to give you such a great overview and excitement for this incredible destination. Brendan, how say you?
I say good. Hey, that was fabulous. It's so good to get that expansive understanding of what's happening on board the ships. Obviously, the destination is incredible. The ships are incredible. And when you put those two things together, what you have is an incredible vacation experience. So absolutely, let's get into the destination a little bit more, and let's get into the cruise tour experience a little bit more. Just like Abe, I spent many years working on board cruise ships. I worked on board cruise ships for about 11 years. If I take all the contracts that I spent in Alaska, and a contract is just those several months that we were on board at any given time, I would have spent about 3.5 solid years just cruising the southeastern coastline of Alaska. The last 5 years, I've been working with the interior of Alaska to create our cruise tours. And it's a destination that I sincerely believe that if you could make that leap to want to experience Alaska by both land and sea, you'll have just fabulous lifetime memories for you and your friends and your family and your loved ones. That's me, gorgeous and young, left-hand side of the screen. I think I was 22 there in Glacier Bay. Pretty girl on my arm. She's downstairs now with the baby, so that worked out well. And then right-hand side of the screen, that's me, most recent trip to Talkeetna, actually. I go to Alaska about 2 or 3 times a year. So let's jump across one slide, Abe, talk a little bit about that coastline of Alaska. As Abe mentioned, Alaska's massive. As Abe mentioned, exploring Alaska, that's something to think about. How do you have the experiences that you want to have? How do you see the things that you want to see? Well, in addition to the Alaska being as big of a destination it is, there's also an incredible amount of coastline. There's more coastline in Alaska than the East Coast, the West Coast, and the Gold Coast combined. And in many cases, the destinations along the coastline are a series of interconnected islands that are landlocked. Think Juneau, think Sitka. You can't get there unless you're getting there by ship or you're getting there by air. So experiencing this coastline by cruise ship is really the perfect way to explore these destinations and see so much of what they have to offer. And that's in fact why Alaska is one of our strongest, what we internally at Royal Caribbean call our first to cruise markets, because so many folks are exploring. They want to get to Alaska, and when they realize how big it is and how the coastline is a series of interconnected islands, they realize, hey, the cruise is actually a really fabulous way to be able to achieve that. So that coastline that you're seeing here, this is the southeastern coastline of Alaska. As Abe mentioned, we've just got 4 really incredible ships that are exploring this coastline as part of Seattle round-trip runs, Vancouver round-trip cruises, open jaw sailings, but really the destinations that they're visiting along the way are in most cases replicated, just in a different series of order, spending a little time in more in one place or a little less in the other. There's smaller differences in the destinations that we visit, but there's some really core destinations that we go to as part of any Alaska itinerary. The first is Juneau, and Juneau is one of my favorite destinations in all the cruising that I did over the years. And one of the fabulous experiences to have in Juneau is the whale watching. Of course, that's something that we think of from key Alaskan experiences, right? If we want to walk away from that vacation saying that was everything that I wanted it to be, in many cases, whale watching is a big, big part of that. So in Juneau, what's happening really is that in springtime, the whales are migrating down from Hawaii through the Pacific to the feeding grounds of Alaska. And that's why you have this incredible whale watching opportunities as you go out on small boat excursion opportunities on your afternoon and your morning in Juneau. Now, if you get lucky, certainly what you have the opportunity for is what's called the bubble net feeding. This is when the pods of humpback whales are using their blowholes to create pockets of the air and then feeding off the fish. And it's such a uniquely Alaskan experience and real opportunities for that as you particularly go to Juneau, but then also Ketchikan as well. As you go to the next port, one of the key ports is Skagway. And Skagway beautifully blends 2 things that I love about Alaska. The first is the incredible history that you get in each of your ports of call along the way, but also the incredible scenery that it is paired with as well. Obviously, you go back to the late 1800s, you got that incredible gold mining history that Alaska is so famous for. And on the Yukon and White Pass rail experience, this rail line, what it's doing is that it's following the route that the miners took in the late 1800s to access the Yukon gold fields. But while you're doing that, you have just the most beautiful scenery, spectacular peaks, and the valleys and the rivers all along the way. It just beautifully blends those 2 experiences that you get in Alaska. Very easily accessible from the ship. Just as you get off the ship in Skagway, it's just walking down to where the narrow gauge rail experience begins. Very, very, very cool. All right, let's jump across one slide, Abe, and talk a little bit about Ketchikan, another key port, because it offers beautiful wilderness experiences. And something that Abe spoke about, and I'll get into a little bit more, is that we all want those incredible wilderness and wildlife and mountains and glacial experiences as they were going to Alaska. One of the great wilderness experiences that you can have in Ketchikan is taking a floatplane adventure. Now, as I always say to everyone who's going to go to Alaska, is that everyone should take the opportunity to see Alaska from up top. Seeing Alaska from on high is a very different and a really beautiful experience, different from the experience that you get when you're standing on land or you're on a boat. And the floatplane adventure in Ketchikan takes you up, flying parallel amongst the misty fjord. These are 1,000-foot smoky cliffs. You're surrounded by the Tongass National Forest. It's just this incredible wilderness afternoon experience that you have the opportunity to do in Ketchikan. But I think also what is important to recognize, and I say this, and I hope Abe doesn't cut my microphone off here when I say this, but I'm an Alaska fan number one and a Royal Caribbean fan number two. Everybody should just get to Alaska. But we really believe that we're going to deliver amazing experiences for you if you come with Royal Caribbean. But when you do go on a cruise to Alaska, I think sometimes the notion is out there that it's just this really expensive shore excursion experiences day in, day out as you're going in the ports of call, and it's just not the case. Absolutely. If you are going to be taking a floatplane ride or a helicopter ride and landing on a glacier, that is going to be a high dollar experience. But there are just as many smaller to medium to no money experiences that you have the opportunities to take part in the ports of call along the way. Now, this is one of them. This is what I loved to do when I was cruising in Alaska. As you docked in Juneau, as I docked in Juneau, instead of taking the cable car to the top of the mountain, just walking around to the back of the mountain gives you access to beautiful, scenic, gorgeous trails, one of which is the Mount Roberts Trail that takes you up to the top of the mountain. Again, this is where everyone else is going by cable car, but you, if you want to, can go via a beautiful hike. It's about an hour and a quarter hike, takes you to the top of the mountain. Before you get to the top, where all the folks are, the foliage opens up and you can see right to the end of the Gastineau Channel. And it is spectacular, and it is amazing, and it is free. And you can really blend up those experiences along the ports of call along the way. Have that once-in-a-lifetime experience with a floatplane or a helicopter adventure. Do the whale watching. But then also opportunities, for example, to do those hikes, which are little to no money experiences along the way. Real opportunities to just have amazing experience within the budget that you have set for your cruise vacation. All right, let's jump across one slide, A, because I want to talk a little bit more about the glacial scenic areas of cruising, because I think this is so important to just get a little bit of a handle on as you explore your opportunities to cruise to Alaska. Because if you have been exploring Alaska, and you probably have because you're here today, what you'll have heard is certain names that are associated with the glacial scenic areas of cruising the ports of call along the way. You'll have heard names like Glacier Bay and Hubbard Glacier and Tracy Arm Fjord and Endicott Arms, and these are all just glacial scenic areas of cruising. Now, I was super lucky. I got the opportunity to experience all of them as part of my 11 years working on board, and I think what is true about it for me is that they're all fabulously beautiful, but in their own individual and unique way. They have their own personalities. There's not one that's better than the other. They just have their own personalities. Now, I want to focus in on Hubbard Glacier, and the reason for that will become apparent very shortly. But the personality of Hubbard Glacier is that she's one of the most dramatic of the glacial scenic areas of cruising. And that's specifically because where many glacial areas are receding, Hubbard Glacier is advancing to the tune of around 30 meters per day. And what that is the calving. This is when the cliffs of ice collapse from the glacier into the ocean, and it's dramatic and it's spectacular, and it has the cracks and the booms, and that's why the native Alaskans called it White Thunder, because it's this dramatic experience. Now, where you're sitting right now for the ship is Disenchantment Bay, and the captain is slowly spinning the ship to get those incredible views of the glacier that's 7 miles wide, hundreds of feet above the ocean. A national park ranger is narrating the experience. It's an awesome day. But so is Endicott Arms in its own individual way. And so is Tracy Arm Fjord in its own individual way. And honestly, if you have never been to Alaska before, it doesn't matter what glacial scenic area cruising will be included as part of your itinerary, because you will be blown away by any of them. All right, let's jump across one slide, Abe, and get a little bit more into the cruise tours and talk about the opportunities that you have to explore the interior of Alaska, because when you are choosing your itinerary, you're going to have that amazing cruise experience regardless of any ship that you take with us at Royal Caribbean. Whether it's the Ovation or whether it's the Radiance or the Serenade or Quantum, you're going to have an incredible cruise to Alaska. Small variations in itinerary. If you're sailing out of Seattle, you're going on the outside of the passage. That's that block of land you see just north of Vancouver. If you're going out of Vancouver, you're going on the inside of the passage. You have Vancouver Island and mainland Canada on either side of you. Beautiful and scenic. The itinerary is pretty consistent with minor variations in destination. What happens is as you travel north on the Radiance of the Seas for our open jaw itineraries, that means you're starting out at one destination and then debarking in another. You're not going back to that point of origin. But what happens on Radiance of the Seas when you travel north, instead of going back to that point of origin, you go to Seward. That's that northernmost coastal point that you can see on the map there. That is where you would debark the ship. What that does is it creates the opportunity for you to further explore into the interior of Alaska. If you're doing a round trip itinerary, you don't have the opportunity for that. Only when you're debarking or embarking the ship in Seward do you create the opportunity to further explore into the interior of Alaska and the incredible destinations that we have in the interior of Alaska, like, for example, Alaska, with the 7 hanging glaciers and the Chugach mountain range. It's an incredible wilderness destination that you have the opportunity to explore. North of that, you go to Anchorage, which is the most populous city in the interior of Alaska, but there's more moose within the city limits than people, surrounded by the wilderness. Great opportunity for the Tony Nose Coastal Trail that stretches along the coastline. Fabulous breweries, great eateries. As you travel north, you have Talkeetna, which is known as the town at the end of the road because nothing is beyond it except Denali, the tallest peak in North America. And when the clouds rise from that, it is a spectacular sight. North of that is Denali National Park with its 6 million acres of pristine and wild and wonderful land. More opportunities for Denali, the mountain. And north of that is Fairbanks, gates to the Arctic, home of Aurora Borealis and the midnight sun. All of that is in the interior of Alaska. And unless you do an open jaw itinerary on the Radiance, you don't have the opportunity to further explore the interior of Alaska. Cruise tour is simply a combination of two things: a 2 to 6 night Royal Caribbean land tour experience into the interior of Alaska that's combined with a 7-night cruise on board the Radiance to create your cruise tour experience. And we have 9 to 13-night cruise tour experiences, which is a 7-night cruise and a 2-night land tour, the 7-night cruise up to a 7-night cruise and a 6-night land tour, where you have the opportunity in order to explore those destinations. You really need multiple nights in the interior of Alaska to truly explore much of what it has to offer. Let's jump across one slide, Abe, and I want to see and talk a little bit about the wilderness and the wildlife and the mountains and glaciers, because this is a really good question to ask yourself. If you have those amazing experiences on your cruise to Alaska, and you do, make no mistake about it, a cruise to Alaska is spectacular. Why should you do the cruise tour? What is it additionally about the cruise tour that creates a different and a unique experience? Why should you go to those destinations in the interior of Alaska? I think a great way to look at it is to think about it in terms of the fundamentals of what do you want from an amazing vacation experience to Alaska? Because when you boil it down to its core components, what mofos want is amazing wilderness and wildlife and mountains and glaciers. Now, you get all of that on the cruise. It's just elevated as part of the cruise tour. When you think about the wilderness, you think about those incredible opportunities that we talked about in Ketchikan to be doing a float plane adventure surrounded by the Tongass National Forest. That's an amazing wilderness experience. But as you go to the interior of Alaska, you have those opportunities extended out to stand in national parks surrounded by nothing but nature. Your wildlife, your wilderness experiences are elevated as part of a cruise tour over just the Alaska cruise. Same thing with the wildlife. When you think about the wildlife opportunities on the coastline, you have orcas and sea lions and bald eagles. You just have amazing marine wildlife. But when you go into the interior of Alaska, particularly Denali National Park, you have the opportunity for the big five: the moose, the caribou, the grizzly, the Dall sheep, and the wolves. Your wildlife experiences are elevated as part of a cruise tour. And when you think about the mountain experiences, well, if you've ever stood surrounded by the Kenai mountain range cascading as part of glacial formations down into the Pacific on the coastline, you'll know that that takes your breath away. But the one mountain that we think of is Denali, the tallest peak in North America. And that is over 377 miles from any cruise destination in Alaska. Your wildlife experiences are elevated as part of a cruise tour over just the Alaska cruise. Now, those glacial experiences you get in any cruise only or cruise tour. But 3 out of the 4 reasons that really drive, hey, I want to have these types of experiences in Alaska, each of those is elevated as part of the cruise tour over just the Alaska cruise. All right, let's jump across one slide, Abe, because I want to brag a little bit about the land component of the cruise tour, if that's cool with you.
Absolutely.
Because we spend a ton of time just making these experiences into the interior of Alaska truly, truly fabulous. And we're so proud to be able to say that a Royal Caribbean Alaska Cruise Tour experience on the land component. Abe told you all of those things that are amazing about our experiences on board the cruise. I'm going to tell you a little bit about all those things that are amazing as part of the land component of the cruise tour and define what we term an industry elevated experience, an experience that is elevated in the industry. First is lodges. Let's jump across one slide, Abe, because this is so important. We've been doing cruise tours for a ton of years, like 20 odd years. We don't own lodges in the interior of Alaska, never have. When we are selecting lodges, we start out with one driving need, which is the ability to deliver the experience in that destination. We want to take our guests to the destination where they're going to have the most amazing Alaskan experience. And when we get to that destination, we select the finest property in that destination. It's all about the experience for us. We want to take you to the places where you're going to have those amazing experiences and then select the finest available property in that destination. Great example of this is Hotel Alaska. I talked about Girdwood before. It is beautiful. The Chugach mountain range and the 7 hanging glaciers that surround it provide tremendous opportunities for wilderness experiences. We take you to Girdwood because of its amazing destination. We stay in Hotel Alaska in Girdwood because it's the finest available property there. It's also the finest property in Alaska, bar none. Take an opportunity to look at it online. It has heated saltwater swimming pools that look out over lush valleys. It has 4 Diamond Star restaurants that sit at the top of the mountain. It's an amazing, amazing property. Same thing, Talkeetna Alaskan Lodge. We would certainly cite it as the second finest property out there, but check out those views. Top right-hand side, that's Denali, the range towering above everything else. These are the views from the back of Talkeetna Alaskan Lodge. Only major property in the interior of Alaska that has those incredible views, but also has ease of access to the town of Talkeetna itself for those great local experiences, just 5 minutes away. And then Denali Park Village, just a 12-minute complimentary transfer away from the gates of Denali National Park. It sits right on the Nenana River, like it's rushing by, fire pits on the outside, surrounded by the Alaska mountain range. Just a great property for those national park experiences. Really proud of our property selection as part of our Royal Caribbean Cruise Tour experiences. But then also, everything is fully escorted. This is so key to delivering on amazing cruise tour experiences in the interior of Alaska. Let's jump across one slide, Abe, and look at those fully escorted breakdown, because everything that we do is fully escorted by a local tour guide. We call them an adventure specialist. This is someone who comes from Alaska or lives in Alaska, but has a deep connection with the destination of Alaska itself. Most of the industry is what's called a rep experience, representative-led. We are a fully escorted experience. We are escorted from day one of the land tour. When you fly into the interior of Alaska, you're met by your adventure specialist. They introduce you to your dedicated motor coach driver, and they then show you your dedicated deluxe motor coach for you and around 44 other guests. That's your experience for the duration of the land tour, and we think it really excels from the industry standard. All right, let's take a look at those luxury transportation, because I talked about those deluxe motor coaches, but also the amazing rail experiences that you'll have as part of a Royal Caribbean Alaska Cruise Tour. When you're traveling from the coastline, there's a rail line that stretches all the way up to Fairbanks. The rail line is operated by a state-owned organization called the Alaska Railroad, and they operate the engines too. The rail carriages, some are state-owned and some are independent-owned. We use the best that are out there. The Wilderness Express rail carriages, 80 persons up top, luxury leather seating, power ports in the seats, bar service available at the seats, those beautiful domed roofs for fabulous views as you're traveling through Alaska. What you're not seeing here is down below, 80 persons, white linen, silver service, freshly prepared meals available for purchase. This is such a cool way to travel. Every single cruise tour that we offer includes a rail section on board the Wilderness Express, typically 3 to 5 hours. Some of our cruise tours have multiple rail sections. All right, let's jump across one slide, Abe, because in addition to lodges, service, and transportation, you also have included experiences that are built into the cruise tour itself. So when you have these, think of these kind of like shore excursions that are already built into the land tour component of the cruise tour. One of my favorites there is the Riverboat Discovery. So indicative of Alaska and our experience in Alaska. You're cruising down the Chena River on an old stern wheeler, visiting an Athabascan Indian village, learning about gold dredge mining while you were out there, all with a family of the Binkleys who have been in Alaska since the founding of Fairbanks itself over 100 years ago. Like, that's the authentic delivery of the destination. The two experiences that you probably heard of a little bit are the tours into Denali National Park. Every single Royal Caribbean Alaska Cruise Tour includes, at a minimum, a tour into Denali National Park. And let's jump across one slide, Abe, because I think this sometimes helps to frame it up for our attendees here today. There's only one road that goes into Denali National Park. It's 92 miles long. It's called the Denali Park Road. And when you hear different names like the Tundra Wilderness Tour or the Denali Natural History Tour, it's just telling you how far down that road you go. The shorter tour goes around 30 miles into the park. The longer tour goes around 62 miles into the park. And of course, the further you go in, the more opportunities that you have for the wilderness and the wildlife and the mountains. Typically speaking, if it's a shorter tour into Denali National Park that's included, you can upgrade to the longer tour when you're there. All right, let's jump across one slide, Abe, and we're going to close it out with a couple things, because I think it's really helpful for us to discuss a little bit some of the temperature ranges, when we're cruising to Alaska, what you'll be experiencing. But before we do, let's just kind of hone down on some of those cruise tour experiences that we have. I mentioned before, 9 to 13 nights. It's a 7-night cruise, then a 2-night land tour, going up to a 7-night cruise and a 6-night land tour. Now, different ranges, different options. Mark is 100% right. This is the time to be having the conversation with Mark and his team to say, okay, well, what is the experience that is going to be more appropriate for me? What is the experience that's really going to hone in and deliver the kind of experiences that I want on my Royal Caribbean Alaska Cruise Tour? Where I suggest that you start the conversation, though, before you call Mark, what I want you to do is have that conversation with your friends and family and loved ones and say, how long do we have to have an amazing vacation experience in Alaska? Because what you can see there as part of our cruise tours is that on our shorter cruise tours, the 9 and 10 night, you have the opportunity to visit Fairbanks, Denali, Coostooner, and Anchorage. And on our 11 night, you have the opportunities to visit the same places, but one more destination, Alaska. On our 12-night cruise tours, you have the opportunity to visit the same destinations, but now one more destination, Seward, and so on. It just stands to reason that the longer that you're traveling to Alaska for, the more opportunity, right, you have to have amazing experience and see things. But recognize that Alaska is not Disney World. The bears will be there if they want to, and they won't if they won't. And the clouds will rise from Denali, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But the longer you go to Alaska for, the more opportunities that you create for yourself for those magical, natural moments to happen. So have that conversation with your friends and family and loved ones. How long do we have to commit to having an amazing vacation experience in Alaska? And talk to Mark and his team, and they'll be able to make you a selection from those cruise tours of that length. I'm just going to highlight a couple cruise tours here because all of our cruise tours are fabulous, but we do have two that are unique in the industry. The first is the Katmai Bear Trek. We fly you to Katmai National Park. This is an amazing destination. And in Katmai National Park, there's a destination called Brooks Falls. And on Brooks Falls, during the season when the salmon are spawning, the bears descend on Brooks Falls in order to hunt them. And there's these elevated wooden platforms surrounding it where you have one-of-a-kind, amazing, breathtaking bear viewing experiences. It's very, very cool. Very few departures we have for that cruise tour because it needs to align with when the salmon are spawning. A little bit more expensive because of the flight, but very, very cool. Also, the Family Tundra Express. We are a cruise time for families, and that is no different on our cruise tours as well. We have a fabulous cruise tour that is designed just for families. A little bit shorter travel segments, great included experiences that are kid-friendly orientated. I would say probably think of anything younger than 7 to 8 to be too young for a cruise tour just because of some of those travel segments. But that's as a guide. You know your kids and your nieces and nephews and your grandkids better than we do, and that's a decision that you can make better. All right, let's jump across one slide and talk a little bit about those temperature ranges because I think this is important to get out there.
Yeah.
That we only cruise to Alaska in the summertime. We are not there in November and December and January and February and March when you hear about those crazy cold temperatures in Fairbanks and so on. We're only there in May through September. So your weather, May through September, is beautiful. You have great sun patches, and then it can rain a little bit and be a little bit cloudy. But the temperature during the summertime when we are doing our cruises and cruise tours is really, really nice. You can see there in the bridge season, we're about the mid-50s. As you get into July and August, you get into around the mid-60s. Gets a little bit hotter as you go into the interior Alaska, a few degrees cooler as you hit the coastline harder. I took this from Anchorage, but it gives you a nice range of the temperature ranges that you'll have as you're traveling through Alaska, depending on the season. And those seasons, let's jump across one slide, will really define the opportunities of the things that you have to see. I think this is one of the questions that Abe and I get most when we do these presentations, which is what is the best time to go to Alaska? Well, I think the answer to that is you're going to get different things depending on the time, or certainly the opportunity for different things more. As you go in the spring season, that's May, getting into the early part of June, the flora and the fauna is blooming. It is beautiful. It's just coming out. So it's just gorgeous. Also, as some of the animals are coming out of hibernation, a little bit less of flora and fauna for them to hide in. So that's kind of cool. You get to see it a little bit more maybe. As you get into the hard part of the summer, that's when you have the opportunities for the midnight sun. The most sun that you ever get at any point in the summertime of the Alaska season is summer solstice, which is June 21st. But right around that time, you're going to be 20 to 24 hours of sunlight, depending on where you are. This is a very cool shot. There's a bar in Anchorage, and I know it's a bar because I'm English, and you know that's the way we're built.
You always bring up the bar, Brendan. You always bring up the bar.
But it's got beautiful views. As you sit on the bar on its balcony, you look out over the Turnagain Arm, and if you hit summer solstice, you can literally watch the sun drop below the horizon and pop back up again. It's very, very cool. I'm going to quickly move on from that and talk about the salmon that are spawning, because as you Get into the middle part of June, the silver salmon start to spawn, and then the progressively goes from there with the different species of salmon. But that, of course, is a big attraction from the bears. And then as you get into the winter, the back end of the season, right around kind of August, early part of September, full foliage is happening, which is gorgeous if you can hit that during the right time. But then also opportunities for aurora borealis or northern lights. They're most of the season, but as it gets darker earlier in the latter part of the season, it creates the opportunities to see northern lights. The Fairbanks Visitors Bureau certainly cite the the early part of August onwards as opportunities for aurora borealis. The recommendation that we make is to be on one of the final 2 cruise tours of the season that end in Fairbanks, and that will really increase your chances in order to see northern lights in addition to maybe spending an additional night in Fairbanks. All right, I think that is it, Abe.
Yeah, I just dropped in the this month's special for October is incredibly rich.
Awesome.
60% off the second guest, $100 off. Actually, there's even some flash sales that are bringing in even more. Kids sail free in selected sailings, which is fantastic and really unheard of, especially for Alaska, and many, many more. So that was awesome, Brendan. I need to get back real soon.
Me too.
2021. That's when we're
By
all
the
going to
way,
be going back to Alaska.
Thank
Exactly
you guys. Thank you guys for doing this. Today, when the Chiefs our Kansas City Chiefs got rescheduled for Monday Night Football from Sunday night. So thank you guys for being flexible with us and moving it to this afternoon. And Brendan, I really agree with just about everything you said. That Hotel Alaska, by the way, is one of the things so many of our clients don't know anything about. And it is, to me, without question, exactly as you said, the best property in one of the most beautiful areas of all of Alaska. And there's just so much to see, but it is so, and Abe, you can comment on this, but I think never before has it been more evident on how valuable the consumers, who they pick and who they choose to plan their vacations is. That decision is critically important, I believe, and going to an expert that knows what they're talking about, going to a vacation expert who knows Royal Caribbean, who knows Alaska, who knows where to find the best deals, who knows what time of the season, just like you said, Brendan, that is best to go for whatever it is you're looking for. To me, that's invaluable. And another thing, Brendan, you said that I agree 100%. I said earlier, maybe one of the few complaints we've had about Alaska is the customers that come back and say, why didn't you encourage me to go on a cruise tour instead of just that cruise? The other thing is the people that just do the shorter cruise tour. They almost always wish they would have done a longer cruise tour. So I say to everybody, if you've got the time, spend your kids' inheritance and spend a little extra time up there in that incredibly beautiful part of the world. And you guys are right. Abe, you had the blessing of being up there so many times. Brendan, you do too. 16 times for me is pretty doggone good. And you never can get tired of Alaska. It is a destination of a lifetime. And if you combine the wildlife, the wilderness, which is mountains, glaciers, all of that, there's no place in the world that compares to the Alaska vacation, especially when a cruise tour is part of that. So
it's definitely not, Mark. And just in adding on to what you're saying there as well is the fact that Alaska used to be a destination where people would go to just once, and you yourself have been there 16 times, and every time has been different. And oftentimes, not just on the cruise experience, but also the land tour portion of it as well. Every time can be. So I know you have clients that go once a year, once every other year, because it is the quintessential natural environment. Alaska doesn't change. It's what surrounds you, and the feeling that you get along with the experience is what people get out of it each and every time. And we often remember, depending on where you're viewing from right now, it gets very, very warm here in Kansas City, and so you can fly up to Alaska in the dog days of summer, and guess what? You're going into just beautiful weather and kind of getting that escape in. Love it.
65 up there in summer here in the Midwest. 65 in Alaska sounds so much better than 95 here in Kansas City. I agree with that. And Brendan,
Definitely.
to your point, we have had 31 years of counseling people based on what their interest is. This is not our vacation, it's your vacation, the consumer's vacation. And if whales is something that they want to see, we know the best time to go for whales. If bears are something people really want to see, we can't guarantee that, of course, like you said, but we can tell you when the best time to see bears are and then what the best tours to do bears are. Another thing, Abe, let me ask you this first. Don't you think Alaska this coming season in 2021 and in 2022 will be huge for families and also huge for family reunions with 2-3 generations of people going?
Well, it definitely is, and especially given the state of the world that we're currently in and the distancing that we've had. I think more importantly, and it's grown over the years for sure, but that opportunity of giving the gift of travel versus a physical, tangible item is growing more and more popular. Instead of giving your kid $1,000 iPad or phone for their graduation, it's giving an experience, because it's the experiences that last that much longer. And Alaska, again, used to be a destination where people would sometimes go for their, their 30th, 40th, 50th anniversary, go once and be done. But Alaska's really grown into a destination for all generations. And you couple the experiences that you get with Alaska along with the Royal Caribbean ship, you've got that multi-generational wow that all of our clients have been, used to for 50 plus years now.
And it's so nice that Alaska has transcended into that. I agree with you, Abe, and I love that about it because I'm a big fan of Alaska. And I think what's really good to recognize is that when you're there with younger kids or kids in general, like when you go to the Acropolis, you have to explain what the Acropolis is in Greece. When you go to the Colosseum in Rome, you have to explain what the Colosseum is. You don't have to explain a moose to a kid. You don't have to explain a bear to a kid. The wonder and the magic and the impact will be immediate. So it's a really nice destination for that, in that it's, Europe is great, of course, but the visceral nature of it, young and old and everywhere in between, is just right there in your face. And I love that about Alaska, that it is just transcended into a place for families to make memories together.
Yeah. Hey, if I can tell a quick story, because memories is the name of the game when it comes to vacations. Our son, who is now 35, when he was 7 years old, we took him on an Alaska vacation and we went salmon fishing, and the salmon weren't biting that day. And the guide we had said, "Hey, you want to just catch fish, right? Because you got your kids with us." Our daughter was there; she was 10. We said, "Yeah, we don't care. We live on a lake. The biggest fish we get is about 5 to 6 inches long. We want to just catch anything." And so we caught halibut, and we were with Mimi's dad, who is deceased now. And do you know, that would have been 28 years ago. That memory of my 7-year-old son, our 7-year-old son, with his grandfather, great grandfather actually, priceless, priceless, priceless.
Yeah, that's what you remember.
Abe, my screen's not big enough. The halibut was this big.
Yeah, sure. Like a true fisherman that just gets bigger and bigger over the years, right? I no longer have the screen. Look at this.
Yeah,
but you know what? The memory sticks. That's the most important thing.
To your point, we know Alaska is going to sell out quicker than maybe any other time ever because of all the future cruise credits, because of the fact it's closer than a lot of destinations. Yet it's still a little bit far away, but we're having this webinar right now so people can make decisions as quickly as possible. And Abe, thank you so much for being such a support to us with extra added values and things like you give us all the time to give to our customers. But people want the accommodations that they want. People want balconies too. Brendan's point, I mean, gosh, you get up there and yeah, it can be 22 hours of sunlight. Or dusk anyway. There can, in the early and late season, maybe it's 16 hours. You can still see so much. And I think if you can afford it, you want at least at minimum a balcony cabin. So with that said, give us a call. We are here to help you. And I know if you've not done business with us, you'll be very, very pleased at how our staff knows about Alaska, knows about Royal Caribbean, can find you the best values, can help you make the right decisions, whether it's the cruise or the cruise tour. And they will recommend the cruise tour to you too, because when you spend the kind of money you're going to spend on airfare to go up there, if you can do the cruise tour, you will never, ever, ever regret it. I promise you that. So with that said, our phone number is 816-505-1500, 505-1500, or you can check us out online, cruiseholidays.kc.com, cruiseholidays.kc.com. And the one thing I'll tell you, for of our 31 years in business, 30 of those years, Royal Caribbean has been our #1 ocean cruise vendor. And you all do things right. And Abe, I know, and Brendan, you guys are so proud to have the executives in the company that you have, from Richard Fain, the chairman, and Vicki Freed, vice president of sales and marketing, on down. Classy, Galen Matthews, classy people that do things right. You handled all of this crap, forgive my French, over these last 6 months. You handle things better than almost any other vendor we deal with. And I compliment you for that, and I thank you for that. And Abe, one last thing, there's risk-free programs out there for the consumer. We have these from Royal Caribbean. We have these cancel for any reason insurance options. So if you're still a little nervous about things, let us help give you the options so that you are not nervous about it. And I'll tell you, lots of options there. I can tell you this, however, if you wait too long, you're not going to get what you want or anything at all, and you will be paying higher prices. So with that said, gentlemen, let me say thank you. Any parting shots, as they say, Abe or Brendan?
No, we just really appreciate your time, and of course your entire team. And of course it goes without saying, because it is a Monday night, so go Chiefs.
Oh, I tell you what, I was ready yesterday. I'm even more ready today. Brendan, and thank you for taking the time. I know your schedule is very busy. Everybody like us, Cruise Holidays Kansas City, is asking you for your time to do these webinars. Your knowledge is just incredible. I learned so much that I didn't know. And I texted or emailed my entire staff and said, you're required, not asked, you're required to watch this podcast. And we do podcast it, so you can watch it again later. Chiefs game is on 6 to 9. You'll be wound up after we beat the Patriots. So watch this on podcast about Alaska, and then give us a call on Tuesday morning. We'll be happy to help you. Thanks again so much, you guys. We shall talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks, Brendan.